repeating themselves every single day. When they say the young people are used as a tool to fulfill the agendas of some political parties or leaders, I think that's very accurate. Because I'm trying to imagine, I am very broke, I just graduated, I do not have anything that I'm doing, I'm not able to farm because of the insecurity, and then somebody comes to me and tells me, hi young lady, I have this program, I want you to do for me this and this and this, and I'm going to pay you this amount of money. So now this comes to the challenges that the young people are facing. Let's imagine if there are schools that are accessible by all, if young people are able to get the opportunities, if there's safety, there's security. Trust me, some of these agendas, young people will not be pushing for them, because at least at that point they'll know their rights.
Sounds of the Week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. A senior presidential advisor has told a visiting African Union Peace and Security Council delegation that the detention of first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar is a criminal matter, not a political one. The reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, RJMEC, has warned that the current situation in the country risks sliding back into prolonged armed conflict. And the Episcopal Diocese of Luwolo of the Central Equatoria Internal Province has called for the establishment of a joint boundary commission and protection of civilians living along the South Sudan and Uganda border. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Baria Johnson, and now the news in detail. A senior presidential advisor has told a visiting African Union Peace and Security Council delegation that the detention of the first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar is a criminal matter, not a political one. Speaking to SSBC, Col Manyang-Juk, the chairperson of the high-level ad hoc committee and the National Transitional Committee, stated that the first Vice President is being held on suspicion of a crime. He explained that the detention is connected with the death of soldiers fighting in Nasir and other areas.
On the issue of Dr. Riek, we said procedures are underway. It's not a political detention, but a criminal. And these are normal procedures taken when somebody is under suspicion on issues of criminal. So it's not political. It's connected with the crime, deaths of the soldiers in Nasir and fighting in other area. This was the purpose of it, and this is how we explain the situation to them.
This is not the first time a senior government official has described first Vice President Dr. Machar's house arrest as a criminal matter. Both Vice President Abandeng and government spokesperson Michael McQuay previously stated that Machar had violated the law and will be arraigned in court following an investigation. However, these claims have been met with strong opposition. Oyet Nathaniel, the deputy chairman of the SPLM-IO, argues that the house arrest has violated the 2018 peace agreement and severely jeopardized South Sudan's stability. In a similar vein, several Western diplomats in Juba have continued to urge President Kiir to reverse the house arrest and for all party leaders to return to urgent dialogue to find a political solution. The reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, RJMEC, has warned that the current situation in the country risks sliding back into prolonged armed conflict. The peace monitoring body raised the alarm during a meeting held on Monday in Juba with the visiting African Union Peace and Security Council delegation. Addressing the delegation, RJMEC Chief of Staff Ambassador Berhano Kibede advised that the peace process requires the concerted efforts of all stakeholders to get the country back on track toward lasting peace. He called for stronger, more direct engagement from the AU Peace and Security Council the AU High-Level Ad Hoc Committee for South Sudan, and the African Union leaders to ensure full implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. Ambassador Kibede stressed the need for continued support from peace guarantors in the escalation efforts and in upholding the permanent ceasefire. He urged AU member states to adopt a unified stand through coordinated messaging from their capitals in support of the peace process. The ambassador also urged parties to the peace agreement to avoid actions that could escalate tensions. He called for responsible leadership marked by an end to unilateral decisions and conditional release of all detainees, renewed dialogue, and inclusive implementation of the peace deal. Looking ahead to the general elections scheduled for December 2026, Ambassador Kibede highlighted the importance of funding the National Constitutional Review Commission and the National Elections Commission to enable them to finalize the constitution-making and electoral processes. A political analyst says the recent visit by the African Union Peace and Security Council to Juba is unlikely to resolve the political deadlock in South Sudan as it lacks a military wing. Dr. Abraham Cole stated that deep mistrust between South Sudan rival groups and the AU's limited enforcement power mean the visit may have little impact. Speaking to iRadio, Dr. Cole pointed to a previous AU panel of wise intervention that failed to ease tensions after the detention of the first vice president.
Well, it depends on the personalities of the individuals who are within the Committee of African Union Peace and Security, because the history shows into it that African Union Peace and Security, because they don't have mostly a very active military wing to impose some of the resolutions, it always makes some of the initiatives that they have taken and the lobby and the negotiations, and mostly an approach to resolve issues that are pertaining to each state, not to be solved as per the mandate of African Union because of the lack of the imposing authority.
Dr. Cole added that local implementation of AU recommendations also faces insufficient political will from the parties involved.
So I am still hopeful, knowing the kind of tension and the way the current situation becomes so fluid. I am still sure this coming of Security Council or African Union will not produce or will not give an impact to the issues that are affecting the country. Because, you know, the way states are made to be dependent and they are made to have their sovereign decisions making. So if the African Union is pushing issues that are not within the legal system, that will be able to violate the sovereignty of the South Sudan, then now maybe the president or the presidency might not be able to accept that. And as a result of this, that is why, and if the president does not accept, then the African Union does not have a force to impose those issues that they have discussed with the president to make sure that they are implemented.
You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News. The Episcopal Diocese of Luwolo of the Central Equatoria Internal Province has called for the establishment of a joint boundary commission and protection of civilians living along the South Sudan and Uganda border. In a letter dated 11th August 2025 and seen by iRadio, Luwolo Diocese said the unresolved border issue shifted from a technical matter to a humanitarian and security crisis, causing displacement and loss of lives. It added that if the border issue between South Sudan and Uganda are left unsolved, tensions will deepen, resentment will harden, and the future generations will inherit a legacy of hostility instead of hope. The Anglican Church urged the leadership of the two countries to act and address the issue. Luwolo Diocese further recommended the establishment of a joint boundary commission that include elders, historians, religious leaders, civil society, and technical experts from both nations. They also called for the protection of civilians, improved land access, and livelihood for all communities in contested areas while discussions proceed. The statement partially reads, and I quote, "In recent years, the unresolved border has shifted from a technical matter into a humanitarian security crisis. The impact has been grave: loss of countless lives in avoidable confrontations, displacement of families from ancestral homes, interruption of livelihoods, with farmers and traders unable to access their fields or markets. This situation serves neither the people of Uganda nor South Sudan. Instead, it threatens regional stability, economic cooperation. If left unaddressed, tensions will deepen and the situation will harden, and the future generations will inherit a legacy of hostility instead of hope. In the name of peace, in the spirit of African unity, and in the fear of Almighty God, we urge you to act now with courage, humility. End quote. Among other recommendations, the church called for cross-border reconciliation forums, trade cooperation, and community dialogue led by trusted local leaders. The church went on to urge the two heads of state, Yoweri Museveni and his counterpart, President Salva Kiir, to leave a legacy of wisdom and peace, and to demonstrate to Africa and the world that disputes can be resolved through dialogue, mutual respect, and a shared vision for the future. It emphasized that the issue at hand is not about drawing lines on a map, but about deciding whether the history between Uganda and South Sudan will be shaped by brotherhood or bitterness, by collaboration or confrontation. The Commissioner of Mundri West County in Western Equatorial State has said that a UN truck was ambushed and attacked yesterday along the Mundri-Juba road, resulting in the driver being injured. Zilfa Dawa says a United Nations truck traveling from Yambio to Juba came under attack on Monday afternoon between Lanyi and Doro. She confirmed that the driver was injured in the incident, although the extent of the injuries remain unclear. However, the Lanyi-Doro-Juba road has seen several ambushes in recent months, targeting both public and private vehicles. Commissioner of Mundri West County spoke to iRadio this morning from Mundri town.
It is in between Mundri East. It is between Lanyi and Doro. It is a road attack, but I don't know the meaning to know exactly what happened. But obvious, the information shared in social media is correct. Yeah. And we have to establish whatever happened, we want to know exactly what happened on the road. As anbadi marade, mujimini kama gida kalfaza day. Ito mbe report garena sa biga armed tigaba ya amul kalam deto mbija mbe mujirini zato.
And finally, a member of the National Parliament is calling on the August House to summon the Minister of General Education to explain the delay in releasing the Senior 4 examination results. Felix Bali told the House this morning that it has been over 8 months since the students sat for the exams, yet the ministry has not released their results. He argued that despite repeated assurances from the ministry that the results will be out soon, the ministry has failed to deliver, citing lack of funding as the main reason for the delay. MP Bali is now urging the House to summon the minister to provide a clear explanation.
It is good for a country to have a fixed day of when every result should be out. Before, every February of the year, the results are out. But last certificate and this certificate, now the problem, it is taking time, almost 9 months, 8 months, then the result will be out. Even the student that will fail, how are they going to cope up to receipt? So, as a house, we need a Minister of Education to come here and explain to the House why is this thing always delaying. And also, his delay always he puts to Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance also should be given a warning. There are some important things that we don't need to give excuse on. Any money we can use in order to settle this, because this is the future of the country. I submit, Madam Speaker.
In response, the Speaker of Parliament, Gemma Nukumba, referred the matter to the Education Committee to handle. However, another MP, Gatkoth Ward, opposed this decision and asked the Speaker to instead summon the Minister directly to the House. Meanwhile, MP Komkom Geng supported the Speaker's opposition, saying the issue should be handled by the Education Committee. However, after a brief debate, the Speaker ruled that the matter will be addressed by the Education Committee. You're listening to iRadio News, and for the regional and international news, we are joined by my colleague Madrama James.
Thanks, my colleague Baria Johnson. Let's have a look at some of the stories making headlines around the globe. The Nigeria Air Force has killed scores of gunmen, known locally as bandits, who were members of criminal gangs operating in Zamfara state, the military has said. The Air Force said in a statement on Monday that it carried out a raid in Makakari Forest, northwest Nigeria, which was the hideout of the gunmen who were believed to be some high-profile kidnappings in the area. It said it conducted the operation after surveillance detected more than 400 gang members preparing to attack a village. Elsewhere, Australia's Prime Minister has accused his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu of being in denial over the consequences of the war in Gaza. Anthony Albanese on Monday announced his country would recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September, following a similar move by the UK, France and Canada. Albanese said frustration with the Israeli government had played a role in the move, saying Australians want to see the killing and the cycle of violence stop. Finally, the US and China have extended their trade race for another 90 days, just hours before the world's two biggest economies were set to raise tariffs on each other. On Monday, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order to keep the policy in place until 10th November, while Beijing also announced an extension. It means that the US will hold its levy on Chinese imports at 30%, while China will keep a 10% tariff on American goods. Those are some of the stories making headlines around the globe, and back to you, my colleague Baria Johnson.
Thank you, Madrama. Up next, sports news with Lasuba Memo.
Thanks, Baria Johnson. In the world of sports, let's begin at home. The South Sudan's national basketball team begins its quest for a first ever Afro basketball title today, facing Guinea at 3 p.m. in Luanda, Angola. Ranked number 1 in Africa, the Bright Stars are in Group C with Angola, Guinea and Libya. The tournament runs from August today to 24th, featuring 16 teams split into 4 groups, with group winners advancing directly to the quarterfinals. The second and third place teams from groups A and B will compete against each other, as will the second place teams from groups C and D, to determine the final 4 quarterfinalists. The teams that finish last in their groups will be eliminated. South Sudan's squad includes Basketball Africa League standouts and former MVPs Nuni Omot and Joe Lual Achwil Jr. Still at home, the South Sudan Football Federation announced that Premier League 2025-2026 season kicks off August 21st. According to the football governing body, the matches will be played on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, with the season concluding on May 18, 2026. The opener pits defending champions Jamus will play against newcomers Al Ghazala Wow, while in Friday's fixtures include a Juba capital derby between Katorin and Atlabar, and a clash between Almere, Bentiu and Yei Lion Hunter. Elsewhere, Britain's Emma Raducanu fell agonizingly short of beating world number 1 Ariana Sabalenka and earning a statement win at the Cincinnati Open. Raducanu 22 lost 7-6, 7-3, 4-6, 7-6, 7-5 as defending champion Sabalenka edged a battle lasting more than 3 hours to reach the 4th round. Having also proved Sabalenka at Wimbledon, Raducanu's performance was further evidence as she can severely test the world's best as her rival continues. The season, with the British number 1 fitness issues largely behind her and the development of greater resilience, she has climbed back into the top 40. That's all in the world of sports. Back to you, Barry Johnson.
Thank you, Lasuba. This is iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here's a recap of the main headlines. A senior presidential advisor has told a visiting African Union Peace and Security Council delegation that the detention of first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar is a criminal matter, not a political one. The reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, RJMEC, has warned that the current situation in the country risks sliding back into prolonged armed conflict. And the Episcopal Diocese of Luolo of the Central Equatorial Internal Province has called for the establishment of a joint boundary commission and the protection of civilians living along the South Sudan and Uganda border. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page iRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 12:30. I am Baria Johnson. Happy International Youth Day. Thank you for listening.